Well, the printer cut off the left side of my story, so I have to remember what it said. My mother went to church on Sunday, and no one knew I was coming. The next Thursday, I was born here in Vancouver at the Vancouver Memorial Hospital at 33rd and Main Street, weighing 3.5 pounds. I survived on goat's milk, and 50 people came to see that tiny baby. Before I was born, my sister had died from bee stings at age 3. When I was born, my 11-year-old brother gave me the name Melvin. 2 years later, he died from Bright's disease, so I was raised like an only child. I had the privilege of being born into a Christian family. Both my parents were believers, and my father always read the Bible and led in prayer every morning after breakfast. As a little kid, I liked having devotions because if I moved quickly enough, I could get on my dad's back for a piggyback ride before he got up from kneeling for prayer. We faithfully attended Sunday school and church at the First Methodist Church and were always one of the first to arrive. At about the age of 6, I had no sense of guilt when lying to my folks. In fact, I thought it was funny. They didn't realize what I was doing. The first and second grades were attended here in Vancouver. Then we moved to a 10-acre farm in Richfield, Washington, where I attended the 3rd through the 7th grades. In the 5th grade, I learned to play the clarinet and have now played it for 80 years. At age 9, an aunt took me and my cousins to the Orchard Holiness Association camp meeting out here in Orchards, and I really enjoyed it. By this time, I had a sense of guilt now when I sinned. When I was in the 6th grade, my mother suggested I should read the Bible every day. So I did, and it became a good habit. However, in my King James Bible, some of the words seemed very strange, and I secretly wondered why God didn't know how to speak the English language. Moving back to Vancouver, I attended the 8th and 9th grade at Shumway Junior High and loved playing in the band. At this time of my life, I had a desire to be forgiven for my sins, so I would kneel at my bedside and pray. However, I never told anybody about it, and thus I never really had any real assurance of salvation. Now in junior high, I wanted to get a job like my buddies did, stocking shelves, etc. But being a little squirt, no one would hire me. Lawn jobs were all that I could find, so I took 6, one for each day of the week, Monday through Saturday. Sunday was for Sunday school and church, and a day for rest. One lawn job was for a widow who appreciated my work and gave me a $25 war bond for Christmas and a Pendleton shirt for my birthday. Our church had revival meetings about every 2 years. Going forward once, I tried to give my all to God, but unfortunately, no one explained what that meant or used the scriptures to show me. In high school, I worked summers at the Washington Co-op Cannery at the Hidden Brick Mill and picked strawberries, raspberries, and filberts. However, I kept Mrs. Powell's lawn job because she continued to be so kind to me. As a senior, I wondered if I could go to college. My dad had survived 3 heart attacks and no longer worked, so finances were a problem. After praying about it, I had a real peace and felt if the door opened or it didn't, it was okay either way. One day a letter came from Cascade College in Portland saying Mrs. Powell had made a donation to the college, and if I were to go there, it was to help pay for my expenses. When I looked at the amount she gave, it was enough to nearly cover most of my expenses for my first 2 years. Before my senior year was over, Mrs. Powell died, and when they read her will, she left me enough to cover my 3rd year at Cascade College. I now realize that being a little squirt was no problem for God. He could meet my needs. To help cover the expenses of my voice lessons at Cascade, I swept the dining hall twice a day. On Saturdays, I pushed all the tables and chairs to one side, then mopped the floor, and then waxed the floor. After it dried, I pushed them all back and did the same for the remaining half. Cascade College was founded by Quakers, and its first classes were held at the Piedmont Friends Church. Thus, we had chapel every day at 10:30. Speakers were local pastors, missionaries home on furlough, celebrities passing through the city like Dawson Troutman, founder of the Navigators. At the beginning of each semester, an evangelist was invited to speak. I was very aware that I didn't have the peace that others had because my will was not really surrendered to God. One morning I made that surrender and found God's real peace. Their student foreign mission fellowship group helped me develop a real interest in missions both at home and abroad. Graduating with a major in voice and a minor in education, I next wanted to study choral conducting at Westminster Choir College in Princeton, New Jersey. Again, finances were a problem. Through a neighbor boy attending Clark College, I learned the U.S. Department of Interior was hiring to do a survey of the Northwest, and a few jobs didn't need any background in engineering. I went and applied. The man said, "Well, you're pretty little," and paused. Then he said, "Well, you are little, but I think you're strong, so I'll hire you." We worked 5 days a week and were paid for 6. So the door opened to go to Westminster Choir College. Leaving Portland at 9 p.m. on the Greyhound bus, it took 4 days and 3 nights straight through to arrive in Princeton, New Jersey at 9 in the morning. However, the bus made up a lot of time and I arrived at 5 a.m. Getting off the bus, I met a policeman who told me I could wait at the police station until the college opened if I were tired, and there was a cot down there I could use. The cot was a bed in the prison cell. I didn't hesitate to use it after 4 days and 3 nights on the bus. I wrote home to my folks. Well, I got off to a great start. I spent my first night in jail. Since I was too poor to go home for the holidays, I had a cousin living in West Point, married to the head of the language department. She invited me to spend my holidays up there. One holiday, for spring vacation, she called at the last minute and said their plans had changed and they couldn't entertain me. I had not saved enough money for the week since the school would be closed and there wouldn't be any meals. That evening, I came down with the flu. And I figured I had just enough cash for meals through the following Tuesday morning breakfast. Yet that evening, God gave me the most wonderful peace that I'd ever had, and that everything would be okay. By Tuesday, I was over the flu, and after breakfast, decided to walk around the town and see if I could find a lawn job. As I was leaving the campus, I decided to check in my mailbox. There I found a tax refund check from the IRS. And this completely covered my needs. God knew why he gave me that peace. Upon graduation, I was drafted into the Army. The Korean War was over, but the draft was still on. I was assigned to the 7th Corps in Stuttgart, Germany, and placed in their Army band. I had wonderful fellowship with some Christian guys in the service. After my discharge, I taught music and English at Glenwood, Washington's elementary school and high school. A dear elderly couple took me home for Sunday dinner after church every Sunday. One morning, the temperature was 34 below zero. After a year of teaching, I entered the University of Oregon and completed all the requirements for the 5th-year certificate and a master's of education. While I was at the U, I became very involved in InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. Their method of inductive Bible study had a profound effect on my life. They had 18 Bible studies going that year on campus. Next, I took a job teaching elementary music at Lake Oswego, Oregon, and was there 34 years. While attending church at the Lake Oswego United Church of Christ, I agreed to lead their vacation Bible school one summer. All the positions were filled except I couldn't find anybody to teach the crafts for the 5th and 6th grade. I thought, oh well, somehow I guess I'll make it, but I'm not a craft person. That morning that the BBS was to begin, I arrived to find a lady there who said, "I've come to teach the crafts." Praise the Lord. In the late 1970s, I moved back to Vancouver to care for my elderly parents. This church had a 9:30 a.m. church service, which I began to attend because my parents would settle down and watch a service on TV and I could slip away. One of the first caregivers I hired to care for my parents was Catherine Rasmussen from this church. She's the mother of Ellen, who's sitting back here. She was such a blessing to our family and to Kamloops, where my folks lived. In 1984, this church sponsored a hike through the Grand Canyon. Lila and I were both able to go, and upon our return, we got engaged and were married a year later. For me, one of the high points in our marriage has been our daily devotions. We use the fruit of the vine. If you don't know this, I recommend it. And then we have a list of our family. We pray for one of our family every day. Then we have made a list of our missionaries. There's a page for one missionary each day of the month. That's 31 days, and then we start over. And then we receive the missionary newsletter each month that gives you the latest news on those missionaries. And if you don't receive this, I highly recommend it to you, because then you know how to pray for our missionaries. And then we also use the Global Prayer Digest, which some of the people in this church have subscribed to. Each day, you pray for a different unreached people group somewhere in the world. There are many, many groups out there yet that still have not received the gospel or had a chance. And so you pray for one of those each day, and it's very, very interesting. Most of the unreached people groups in the world today are in India. There are large groups. I think a lot of people think that the unreached people are some savage tribe in the jungle. These people groups number in the millions. The largest unreached people group is in Bangladesh, and that's 134 million people. When our missionaries from Bangladesh, Albert and Matali Adhikari, were here, they passed through. We weren't able to come to our church, but they passed through last fall when they were doing deputation in the States, and we had the privilege of taking them to lunch. And I showed him this people group in Bangladesh, and he said, "Oh, we have an outreach to that people group." So I was really thrilled to hear that our EFM is reaching out to this unreached people group, the largest one in the world. Another blessing that this church has been is that we were introduced to family camp. And so that first year we were married, I said to Lila, "Let's go." So we had 4 grandkids, and some of their parents who could get off work went with us that first year in 1985. The Lord has opened the door for us to go every year since then, and this year was our 35th consecutive year to go, and we took 54 of our family because we have 19 grandkids and 14 great-grandkids now. And so we praise the Lord for that camp, and I've also had the privilege of going to men's retreat since 1985, and I've been able to go consecutively for 35 years also. So we do recommend that to you. I was looking at the new brochure that came out about family camp. It's $165 per person. My friends, you can't stay home for $165 when you get 3 nights at the beach and 9 meals. I say you can't afford to stay home. So I hope that many of you will consider that, and also consider the men's retreat, you guys. It's wonderful. The family camp, Twin Rocks, did an article on our family, and in their last brochure, if you've seen it, they put our family picture there. We always have a family picture, and it's there. So if you want to see that afterwards. Well, I just want to say that this church, God used this church to bless my life beyond my wildest dreams. Meeting my wife here and all of the rest of all of you. And so thank you very much for listening to us.